They feared him, but not for the reason you think.
If Michael Jordan, the most feared man in basketball, says he feared Larry Bird, then you know this isn't just another NBA story. This goes beyond stats and highlights. Players weren't just afraid of Bird's athleticism, they feared what came out of his mouth. Larry would tell you exactly how he was going to score, and then go out and do it. And there was absolutely nothing you could do to stop him. What's even crazier is that legends like Magic Johnson, Dominique Wilkins, Gary Payton, and even Kobe Bryant all admitted it. Which begs the question, if so many of basketball's greatest players feared him, what exactly made Larry Bird so terrifying? Bird's resume almost sounds unreal when you say it out loud: 3 NBA championships, 3 straight MVP awards, a feat only Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain had ever accomplished before him, 12 All-Star appearances, Rookie of the Year, and countless other accolades. On paper, he looked like one of those once-in-a-generation players who completely dominated their era. But here's the irony: Bird never looked like a basketball superhero. He didn't run or jump like Jordan or Dominique, and you'd never see him in a dunk contest. Yet by the mid-1980s, when people talked about the best player in the world, Larry Bird's name was right at the top. What makes his story even more incredible is where he came from: French Lick, Indiana. It was a tiny working-class town where basketball wasn't just a game, it was the community's pride. They called him the Hick from French Lick, and instead of running from that nickname, Bird embraced it. He grew up in a big family where money was always tight, and basketball became his escape. By the time he arrived at Indiana State, it wasn't just about scoring points or padding his stats. He was carrying an entire program that no one cared about and turning it into a national powerhouse.
Michigan State controls. Donnelly in the backcourt. The key, many feel, to beating Michigan State is to take the early lead. When the Spartans get in front.
That 1979 NCAA title game between Larry Bird's Indiana State and Magic Johnson's Michigan State remains one of the most watched college basketball games of all time. What makes it even more remarkable is that Bird didn't win that night. Magic's team was simply too stacked with talent. But the fact that Bird led Indiana State to the championship game at all was nothing short of unbelievable. Before him, the Sycamores were practically invisible. Then, almost overnight, they were on the front page of every sports section in America. That game wasn't just a great TV moment, it marked the beginning of one of the most iconic rivalries in sports history. Even in defeat, Bird's legend only grew. People realized he wasn't just a college star having a lucky season, he was the real deal. When the Boston Celtics finally got their hands on him, the timing couldn't have been better. The team had just come off one of its worst seasons ever, finishing with only 29 wins in 1979. Then Bird arrived as a rookie, and everything changed. The Celtics jumped to 61 wins, a massive 32-game improvement, largely because of one player. And Bird didn't need any adjustment period to find his rhythm. In his very first NBA season, he averaged 21 points, 10 rebounds, and nearly 5 assists per game. From the start, it was clear that Larry Bird wasn't just good, he was special.
Allen level, Bergsten brings it down, you see 2 seconds, 1, and the world champions, the Boston Celtics.
Most rookies take years to adjust to the NBA, but Larry Bird showed up looking like he'd already been running the league for a decade. What people often forget is how much he elevated everyone around him. Veterans like Dave Cowens and Tiny Archibald, who many thought were past their prime, suddenly looked rejuvenated. Then Red Auerbach doubled down on Bird's impact, pulling off the Robert Parrish trade, drafting Kevin McHale, and later adding Dennis Johnson while keeping Cedric Maxwell. Before long, the Celtics weren't just competitive again, they were terrifying. By Bird's second season, Boston was back on top as NBA champions. And if you're a true basketball fan, you know how rare that is. Rookies don't rebuild dynasties, but Larry Bird did it in real time. At first, the league's reaction was pure respect. Players admired his stats, his toughness, and how he single-handedly made the Celtics relevant again. But respect only goes so far. Fear is deeper. Fear is when you start second-guessing yourself before the game even begins, all because of the guy standing across from you. Those first few years built Bird's foundation: the resume, the underdog story, the Boston turnaround. But the fear came later, when he began calling his shots out loud, and then forcing defenders to watch him make them. When people talk about Bird's trash talk, it wasn't the usual "you can't guard me" stuff. Everyone says that. What made Bird different was that his talk was like a prophecy. He'd tell you exactly what he was going to do, then go out and do it. And that's what broke his opponents. Imagine someone telling you they're about to hit a jumper from the wing, and then drilling it right in your face. You're not just losing on the scoreboard, you're losing in your mind. And that psychological warfare was Bird's true specialty. Just ask Reggie Miller. His rookie year provided the perfect example of how Larry Bird could destroy you with words just as easily as he could with buckets.
I'm like, he's like, I am the best shooter this game, and he's saying it out loud so everyone can see. I'm like, oh my God, he's outing me at my home in front of all my family and friends. I'm the best shooter this game has ever seen.
Reggie Miller grew up idolizing Larry Bird, and then one day, he suddenly found himself sharing the court with his hero. But Bird wasted no time reminding the rookie who was in charge. He walked right up to Reggie and said, "You're the guy they drafted ahead of me." Of course, that wasn't true. Reggie was drafted in 1987, nearly a decade after Bird in 1978, but that didn't matter. Larry wasn't trying to be accurate, he was trying to get inside Reggie's head. And for a young player facing his idol, it worked perfectly. Bird then proceeded to torch the Pacers with jumper after jumper, as if he were making a point. Reggie has told that story countless times because it was the moment he realized Larry Bird wasn't just a great scorer, he was a master of psychological warfare. And if you think that's bad, just wait, because Shawn Kemp might have the most humbling Larry Bird story of them all.
He let me know from the start of the game what he was going to do. He really did. He let me know. Before the game, he told me, he was like, he just shook his head at me. He said, man, it's going to be up night for you.
So what did he put up?
I think he gave me, what he gave me, I think he gave me 40.
Shawn Kemp came into the league as a freakish young athlete, a walking highlight reel with jaw-dropping hops and raw power. He had all the athleticism in the world, while Larry Bird had none of it. On paper, the matchup should have been completely one-sided in Kemp's favor. But Bird never needed to outjump anyone. He beat you with his mind and his shot. Kemp has told the story himself. During his rookie year, he went up against Bird, who looked him over, sized him up, and casually told him exactly where he was going to score. Then, just like that, Bird hit the exact shot he'd called. Kemp later admitted the moment rattled him. Because really, how do you defend that? You're young, full of energy, trying to prove yourself, and the veteran across from you not only predicts your failure but makes it come true right in front of you. And then there's the famous three-point contest story, one of the most legendary Bird moments ever. What makes it so incredible is that it didn't even happen in a game.
Larry Bird played in this era, I think he'd be in Europe.
That wasn't a joke. That was Larry Bird telling everyone the event was already over. Then he went out, hit 11 straight shots in the final round, and won the three-point contest without even taking off his warm-up jacket. The whole thing felt like pure theater, but the truth is, it wasn't an act to him. Bird genuinely believed he was the best shooter alive, and then he went out and proved it in front of the entire league. What made that so terrifying wasn't the talk itself, it was that his words came true. Anybody can trash talk, but Bird's words were guarantees, and he used them like weapons. The moment he called his shot, you were already thinking about it, already tense, already bracing for what was coming. He didn't have the fastest first step or the flashiest moves, but it didn't matter. If you hesitated for even half a second because you were still processing what he'd said, the shot was already in the air, and more often than not, it went in. That's why players feared him. It wasn't just that he scored, it was that he beat you twice, once in your head and once on the court. Of course, not everyone bought into the Bird mythology. Dennis Rodman, who rarely gave out compliments, wasn't impressed. He once said Bird wasn't tough to guard, just a fundamentally sound white guy who could shoot. Classic Rodman, always trying to strip away the aura. But he didn't stop there.
That boy, he can play, man. He turned it out.
But here's the thing, even in trying to tear Bird down, Dennis Rodman ended up proving the point. Larry Bird didn't scare people because he was flashy or explosive, he scared them because he turned simplicity into inevitability. For a defender like Rodman, who thrived on chaos and unpredictability, Bird was maddening to guard. He wasn't playing mind games in the typical sense, he was boring you to death with the same move you'd seen 1,000 times. The difference was, he'd tell you exactly what he was going to do first, and then you'd still watch it go in. That was the essence of Bird's psychological warfare, he weaponized predictability. Every shot he called and every prediction he made reinforced the same message. Once Larry decided how the possession would end, there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. It was inevitability disguised as trash talk. And once opponents started to believe it, the game was already over before the ball even left his hands. And it wasn't just rookies or role players who felt the Bird effect. The legends did too. When people talk about Larry Bird, it's often other greats lining up with stories about him. Take Magic Johnson, for example. Their rivalry practically built modern basketball. It started with that 1979 NCAA title game, still one of the most watched college games in history, and carried over into the NBA, where Celtics versus Lakers became the heartbeat of the league. Magic has always admitted that Bird wasn't just his rival, he was his ultimate measuring stick. Magic's game was all about flash, speed, and showtime energy. But every time he faced Bird, he knew there was a guy on the other end who could slow everything down, control the tempo, and kill him with pure efficiency. Their battles throughout the 1980s weren't just games. They were events, moments that defined an entire era of basketball. And Magic himself has said it plainly, Larry Bird was the toughest competitor he ever faced. Don't just take my word for it. The proof is written all over their history.
I would always ask questions and try to learn as much as I could. Right?
Then there's Dominique Wilkins. Everyone remembers the 1988 Eastern Conference semifinals when he and Larry Bird went shot for shot in one of the greatest duels in NBA history. Dominique exploded for 47 points, while Bird answered with 34, but it wasn't about the numbers. It was about the timing. In the fourth quarter alone, Bird dropped 20 points, and every single basket felt like a dagger to the heart. Dominique later called it the best game ever played between two forwards. And even though the Hawks came up short, he openly admitted that Bird had something different, an edge that couldn't be measured in stats. That game became legendary not because one man dominated the other, but because both went supernova, and Bird still found a way to win. For a player as confident as Dominique to tip his hat like that tells you everything about the kind of respect Larry Bird commanded in real time. Gary Payton brought a completely different flavor to the conversation. Known as the Glove, Payton never stopped talking. He'd chirp, taunt, and get under his opponent's skin all game long. But even he admitted that Bird's trash talk was on another level. Payton said he was shocked because Bird didn't just talk random nonsense, he talked specifics. He'd tell you exactly what he was about to do and then execute it perfectly. Payton called it disrespectful and beautiful at the same time, because it wasn't just psychological warfare, it was a masterclass in precision and execution. Even Kobe Bryant, who came along after Bird had retired, gave him massive respect. Kobe was a student of the game, obsessed with film, details, and greatness. He studied Bird the same way he studied Jordan. He admired how Bird manipulated defenders, used his body to create space, and never wasted a single movement. To Kobe, Larry Bird wasn't just a shooter or a trash talker, he was a tactician who mastered every inch of the court.
First 2 points of the game for Larry Bird. Celtics have an 11-point lead. Jordan on the rebound.
Kobe even said that Bird was one of the players he modeled his footwork and patience after. And coming from Kobe, that's the ultimate compliment. When you line up all these testimonies, Magic, Dominique, Payton, Kemp, and Kobe, the picture becomes crystal clear. These were players from different eras and different styles, yet they all reached the same conclusion. Larry Bird wasn't feared because of his athleticism. He was feared because even the best players in the world couldn't stop him from doing exactly what he said he was going to do. And to top it all off, even the greatest of all time, Michael Jordan himself, didn't hold back when it came to giving Larry Bird his due.
That wasn't Michael Jordan out there. It was God disguised as Michael Jordan.
Yeah, that was Michael Jordan himself confirming everything we've been saying from the start. When Jordan first entered the league in 1984, he was pure flash, athleticism, and raw skill. But the Bulls weren't anywhere near ready to compete with the heavyweights. And at that time, the heaviest of them all were Larry Bird's Boston Celtics. Every time young MJ stepped into the Boston Garden, he wasn't just facing a roster full of Hall of Famers, he was walking straight into Bird's personal kingdom. The Celtics dominated Chicago almost every time, and Bird made sure Jordan felt every ounce of that growing pain. Jordan could drop 30, 40, even 50 points, but Boston still walked away with a win. And Bird made it clear that the numbers didn't mean anything if the scoreboard didn't go your way. That was Larry's message. Greatness isn't just about putting up stats, it's about bending the game to your will. And the perfect example of that came during the 1986 playoffs.
Larry told all of us and the media, he said, tomorrow night's the last game of the trip, I'm going to play this one left-handed.
Bird against Kersey.
Jordan delivered one of the most iconic performances in NBA history during Game 2 of the 1986 playoffs against the Celtics. An unforgettable 63-point explosion that left everyone in awe. He was unstoppable, slicing through one of the greatest defenses ever assembled, and by the end of the night, even the notoriously tough Boston Garden crowd gave him a standing ovation. It was that special. But what truly cemented the moment wasn't just the performance, it was what Larry Bird said afterward. In an interview, Bird famously described Jordan's game that night with a line that became legendary in basketball history.